Hey everyone, welcome back to my kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to make a mushroom Wellington. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. All right, so fall is in full swing and you know what that means. Cold and flu season. Can you hear my voice? Just kidding. That means lots of holidays. I have my little assistant with me today, and I'm going to show you how to make a mushroom Wellington, which is a great main dish for your Thanksgiving or your Christmas dinner with your friends and family. So let's go ahead and get started on that. I have everything in front of me that we're going to need. I have got my oven preheating to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm going to start by toasting some pecans, however you want to pronounce it. I'm going to take about half a cup and put those in a dry pan. And let's see, I'm going to go ahead and do it on high. You can do medium too if you're afraid of burning them. And let's see how long this is going to take to heat up. I can't remember how to use my induction burner because it's been so long. All right, so while my pecans are toasting, I'm going to go ahead and chop up one yellow onion really quickly. And I'm just going to go ahead and dice this onion up. Not too fine, not too big, just kind of a medium dice. Okay, those are starting to smell really good. I'm going to go ahead and put these in my food processor that I've got sitting right here. And then I'm just going to pulse them really quick just to make them a little bit smaller. And try not to burn myself on my pan here. All right, so those are good. Now, just going to deglaze my pan there and put all of my onion in. I'm going to go ahead and let my onion cook for a couple of minutes, not completely, just a little bit, and then we're going to add some mushrooms. All right, so my onions are starting to get a little bit soft. I'm going to go ahead and add in some water to deglaze the pan a bit. And then I'm going to put in 8 ounces of white mushrooms. You can also use crimini, baby bella, or even portobello mushrooms. And this is actually a pound of mushrooms, but I'm only going to use half of it because I have plans for the other half. All right, so I'm just going to give that a good stir, make sure it's got enough water in the bottom, and then I'm going to go ahead and put the lid on it and let those mushrooms cook down quite a bit. Now we wait. All right, so my mushrooms are still cooking down a bit, but before they get all the way cooked down, I'm going to go ahead and add in the seasoning. So I'm going to do a half a teaspoon of salt, 1/8 a teaspoon of pepper, and 1 tablespoon of herbs de Provence. This is the best Thanksgiving. It's just got like all those classic Thanksgiving aromas and spices that you love. It's got rosemary, marjoram, thyme, and savory. And it's probably got a couple of other things in there. I think usually it has like lavender and stuff in there too. But if you smell this, if we had smell-o-vision, you would know this smells just like the holidays. So let's go ahead and add in the spices. Oops, oh, it does fit in there, okay. It's a tight fit. So we're going to go ahead and put in a tablespoon of the herbs de Provence, 1/8 of a teaspoon of pepper, and then a half a teaspoon of salt. My assistant is not very happy over there. She wants the calendar that's behind her on the wall. All right, so I'm just going to give that a good stir and let it continue cooking down. Oh, I almost forgot the best part. I'm going to put about a quarter cup of white wine in there. I'm just using the white wine that I've got in my refrigerator. It's a Pinot Grigio. So just go ahead and pour that in. Give it a stir and let all the flavors meld together. You definitely don't want to forget that step. All right, so my mushrooms and onions are starting to look really good. I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of the ingredients. Basically, that's about 1 cup of frozen chopped spinach. You can also use fresh spinach. I just happen to have this in my freezer left over from another recipe. I'm going to go ahead and throw that in. And then about a half a cup of lentils. So I actually just had dried lentils in my pantry, and I went ahead and cooked up a quarter cup of that, and then that turns into about a half a cup of cooked lentils. So we'll go ahead and put those in, and then I'm just going to stir everything to get it nice and combined, and continue cooking it for just a couple minutes more and let all of the flavors meld together. Okay, now while that is continuing to cook, I'm going to go ahead and get started on the next step, and that is rolling out our puff pastry to wrap this filling in. So let me go ahead and grab that. All right, so I've got my puff pastry, and this has been sitting out at room temperature thawing for, I don't know, maybe like an hour or so. I think on the box it tells you it takes like 45 minutes or something or other. So I'm going to go ahead and just use a rolling pin and roll this out so it's a little bit longer. And probably I want it a little bit wider too. Now this recipe makes enough for about 4 people. So if you are having a very large holiday dinner, you're going to want to double or even triple this recipe. Because this one is, quite honestly, it goes really fast because everybody loves it. And there's usually not any leftovers. Give that a good stir. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now I'm just going to go ahead and transfer this back over to my baking tray. My assistant has lots of opinions today. Okay, now I'm going to let that go ahead and sit until I am done with my filling. It's looking pretty good. I'm going to let it cook down actually just a little bit more. I don't know if you can see that, but it's looking pretty good. All right, so my filling's looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and take it off the heat and put it in my food processor just to process it a little bit to make all the pieces a little bit smaller. Let's see if I can get my food processor in the shot here. There we go. Okay. Go ahead and put this in there. The pecans are still in there from before, so I'm just going to put this right on top. You're just going to pulse it until it's all combined and the pieces are not too big but not too small. You don't really want a mush or a paste or anything like that. All right, that looks pretty good. Yeah. Here, I'll pull it out and show you what it looks like. Okay, so that's kind of what you want it to look like. All right, now I am going to dump this onto my puff pastry here, trying not to burn myself. Actually, first, I'm going to let this cool a little bit, actually. I'll let it cool off because I kind of don't want it to start cooking the puff pastry yet. So I'm going to let this cool just a smidge. I'm going to actually put it back in the pan so that I can spread it out and let it cool off. All right, there we go. So we'll let that cool off for just a couple minutes, just until you can handle it without burning yourself. And while that is cooling off, I'm going to go ahead and clean up my workspace because I don't like working in a messy kitchen. All right, so my filling is cooled off just a little bit. It's still kind of hot, so I'll just have to be careful. I'm kind of anxious to get this into the oven because it's really delicious and I want to eat it. So I'm just going to go ahead and pour this into the center of my rolled out puff pastry. And get every last bit in there. And then just use the spoon to just kind of make sure that it's even, that every part of the loaf is going to have about the same amount of filling. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now, I am going to fold the sides up like that, being careful not to rip the pastry. And I'm going to make sure that they overlap. Okay, and then I'm going to fold up the sides. And don't worry about making this pretty because we're actually going to flip it over so that the other side is showing. All right, so that looks good. So let's see if I can turn this without ripping it. There we go. We'll do that. It's pretty easy to slide. Okay. Looks good. Go ahead and slide it to the center. All right. So that is roughly what my loaf is going to look like. I'm just going to kind of round the edges. Then I'm going to grab a sharp knife and I'm just going to cut basically some vent holes, and you can make them decorative or just make them plain, however you want. I like to make them decorative. I like to do them just like little, it's kind of like a little flower design on each third. So we'll go ahead and do that. Oops. All right, so there's my little design. I'm not sure if you can see that very well. There you go. It's like a little starburst, little flower design, whatever you want to call it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put this in my preheated oven, and I'm going to cook it for about 25 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. Just kind of depends on your oven. You want it to be nice and golden and crispy brown on top. So I think it's about 25 minutes last time I did that. So we're going to go ahead and put this in the oven now. So while my Mushroom Wellington is cooking in my oven, I am going to make a mushroom gravy to go on top of it. This is a super simple gravy, and it is what I was saving the other half of my mushrooms for. So let's go ahead and get started on that. I've got one small onion that I've diced finely, and I'm going to saute that on high. I'm going to go ahead and saute those until they are nice and soft. So let me go ahead and get that all in there. Put a little bit of water in there. And just going to give it a little stir. Now I'm using the same pan that I made the Mushroom Wellington in. I didn't wash it out. I just kind of gave it a quick rinse or wipe out to get most of the big bits out, and then I'm reusing it because it's all the same flavors. So we'll go ahead and get that going. Put in a good little bit of water, and then I'm just going to go ahead and put the lid on and let those cook down for maybe about 5 minutes or so. So while my mushrooms and onions are cooking down, I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of the ingredients together. I've got a little measuring cup here. I'm going to do 1 cup of vegetable broth and 1 cup of a plant-based milk. I am using this Bolt House unsweetened pea protein milk. It is really delicious and creamy. So we'll go ahead and do about 1 cup of that. And 1 cup of vegetable broth. Now I'm also going to put my cornstarch in here. I've got 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. This is what's going to thicken our gravy up. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that in there. And I've got a little whisk. I'm going to go ahead and combine that as best as I can. There'll still be a couple of chunks, but you just want to make sure you get all the big ones out. And then I'm going to use soy sauce as my salt for this. So 2 tablespoons of that. Okay. And then 1 teaspoon of rubbed sage. I'm just going to go ahead and add that in there too. Get the rest of my soy sauce out of there. All right. And the one last ingredient, let me just mix the sage in. The one last ingredient we're going to be using is nutritional yeast, and I'm going to use a 1/4 cup of that. All right. So just going to mix everything in, let the flavors meld while my onions and mushrooms cook. Okay, so my onions and mushrooms are nice and softened. I'm going to go ahead and take the lid off and continue cooking them with the lid off, just so that we can kind of caramelize the onions. Let the water from the sautéing and from the mushrooms just kind of cook off. All right, so my mushrooms and onions are just about done cooking, and the timer for the Mushroom Wellington just went off. So I'm going to go ahead and check on that, and if it is nice and golden brown, pull it out of the oven and set it aside to cool off for a little bit. Now, while my Mushroom Wellington is cooling off, I'm going to go ahead and finish this gravy. My mushrooms and onions are nice and brown, and they are smelling delicious. So I'm going to go ahead and give my other ingredients one last good stir and pour it in. Make sure I get all the goodness in there. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this down to a medium heat instead of the sear or super high that I had it on. I might turn it back up, but I just don't want it to start bubbling right away. This is going to thicken up really fast, so don't walk away from it and keep your eye on it. All right, so this is starting to thicken up very nicely. I can tell because the bottom of the pan is starting to show through when I scrape the bottom. I don't know if you can see that there, sort of. So I'm just going to go ahead and cook it a little bit longer. It will thicken up a little bit more as it cools off, so you don't want to make it too thick while you've got it in the pan cooking. So that's it. I'm going to go ahead and take that off the heat. And let me see if I can kind of show you guys what that's looking like. See how you can see the bottom of the pan coming through when you scrape it? That lets you know it's getting thick. Okay, let's turn this off and let it cool off just a second, and then I'll go ahead and set this back down. All right. So that is it for the Mushroom Wellington and a nice mushroom gravy to go with it. This also pairs exceptionally well with mashed potatoes, which I am actually going to be making a video on, so keep an eye out for that. I'm going to go ahead and dish this up and show you what it looks like. All right, so here is what my Mushroom Wellington looks like. I will take a nice picture so I can show a close-up on the thumbnail for this video, but it is steaming hot, and I'm going to go ahead and enjoy it while it is still steaming hot. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and of course, if you're not already a subscriber, be sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of my future videos. I'll see you next time.